5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, hippies. Paz en el barrio. We're going to take up a pun today. You might say it is a punnus. There's a sort of counterculture joke, maybe you remember from the 60s. They say, if you remember the 60s, probably you weren't there. Well, I was, and I do, and I gotta say, brutal aggressions inflicted on the peacefully assembled members of the Occupy movement as municipal regimes of power endeavor to reclaim control of the streets and parks and curbs and campuses seemed to me to have been greeted with an outrage that, to me anyway, was unexpectedly both surprised and astonished. It had a tone that, it seemed to me, could only have originated in youth, or I hate to say depraved indifference, but it's there. Either the surprise is coming from someone too young to have experienced the counterculture revolution of the decade 1964 to 74 with any meaningful cognitive acumen, or they're willingly, ignorantly in denial of it. Because, of course, it's all happened before. I was there, though in my day, tear gas weapons were the only weapons grade instruments they offered, not pepper spray, and the shackles were steel. From my own experience, I can attest that there is not much in the armory of justice like a steel-shod police horse urging you along to disperse a dissident crowd, no matter how reluctant it might be. I hate to actually have to refer to this again, because I sometimes feel like I'm an agent of the state. But, well, you remember Kent State? You're supposed to. That's why they keep reminding us of it. Good photographs easier to reproduce than a hung jury any day, on what we now know to have been probably an officer's premeditated order to open fire from the National Guard on those unarmed, non-threatening, distant students. A couple of weeks later, it happened again at Jackson State in Mississippi, but that case, in fact, was pretty much ignored at the time and pretty much ignored nowadays, and that's probably mostly because the kids were black, and so they got a lot less attention than is now. But you could look it up. It's there. Back then, they called out the Guard to do the dirty work. These days, with the Guard at least still partially deployed in combat adventures overseas, that responsibility, the suppression of the citizenry, seems now to have devolved upon the local and state cops. But that's okay, because with the apparently irresistible, probably irreversible infection of the civilian constabulary with what I call the Pentagon syndrome, that's the interpenetration of police systems with weapons, tactics, and ideologies, all perfected in the military in the course of counterinsurgency wars of choice over the last 40 years. The mission of the police in civilian departments, in many, if not all, locales, is either rapidly being or has already been transformed from serve and protect to search and destroy. There's nothing in the worst of us that isn't in the rest of us. I know. Back in the 1970s, a psychologist named Zimbardo at Stanford, as I recall, conducted an infamous experiment which was instructive in this matter of power. He created a faux prison environment and recruited subjects to perform either as guards or as prisoners. He informed the guards that they were permitted to use any measures necessary to enforce compliance from the prisoners, and things swiftly descended into savagery and mayhem as the experiment was canceled within days, if not hours, which I think proves, all along with the Milgram study a decade earlier at Yale, where he tested the limits of willingness to inflict pain on others to achieve compliance. Our inner fucking pig cop is not far buried in any of us, and we all await merely only permission or reason or excuse to turn the fucker loose. Put another way, dress anyone at all in a cop suit, and their inner fucking pig emerges almost instantaneously. Cops follow orders to commit mayhem in the name of order because it's their job. I believe everybody at some time in their life, preferably early enough for it to make a cognitive difference, should be seriously rousted by the cops, treated to the full script as a suspected perp or skell. Okay, motherfucker, you know the drill. Get up against the car, assume the position, and don't you fucking move. By a good cop on a bad day, or a bad cop any day. It's instructive. So also, I think there should be a draft of the police force. Make everybody do it like the military used to be. That way everybody gets tarred with the same brush. But that's a speculation for another day, or when I see you at the beach, hippies. By the way, as you know, we're hip deep in the holiday season and folks are thinking gifts. If that's you, swing on by the Worldwide Hippies Company store and haul in a basket of tchotchkes to help assuage your incipient guilt. Bye for now.